Okay, so we're going to start with a pair of joggers in order to make our pajama pants. I know the material that I selected is not exactly as stiff as the joggers, but it will still work. And so what we're going to do now, we're going to tuck in the waistband because we're going to go back and do that part later. So when we cut around, we're going to cut around the legs and we're going to cut around the crotch part all the way to the bottom. We're also going to tuck in the cuffs because we're going to cut those out later as well. So I'm placing the pants that we're using as the template on top of my fabric. I'm making sure that the waistband is tucked in. I'm smoothing all the areas out so that I can cut it exactly as it is already made. I'm making sure that the cuffs are tucked in because we don't want to cut that because we're going to do that at another time. Smoothing it out and we're about to cut. Okay, so I do have the pants laid on top of my fabric. The fabric is on the fold. I did this so that when I cut, I will have two identical pieces for I think this is the front of the pants. So the front is going to be slightly shorter in the crotch than the back, and so I believe this is the front of the pants. I am using a quarter of an inch seam allowance, and I'm basically using the little knobs that's on the inside or the outside of my rotary cutter as a seam allowance guide. It just made it that much easier for me. So I'm not cutting right on the next to it, but I am leaving a little room. Please make sure that when you use your tools that they are sharpened. My rotary cutter was getting a little dull. So I'm finishing up here at the crotch, and once I finish, again, we should have two equal pieces for our pajama pants pattern. So here I am, and I'm going to separate the pieces, and we should have two identical front pieces here. Okay, so we have finished the front piece, so congrats on cutting that and making sure that you have two identical pieces. Now we will work on the back piece. As you see, it is still cut on the fold. I am making sure that I have already made sure that everything was already tucked in, that the pants were flattened out, because we don't want to cut too little or too long in certain parts, right? We want to make sure that we cut it exactly as the pants are. And so please also make sure that you are cutting again with at least a quarter of an inch seam allowance. And once we get finished cutting all the way around, we should have two identical parts for the back pants pieces. So we're finished cutting and just trying to make sure, yes, we have two pieces and they are both identical. Now we're going to move on to the next step. This part of the pajama pants pattern is for the waistband. I'm showing you here the seam allowance that is on the waistband and the total length. So that's from the seam all the way to the end of the waistband. I've measured it, and now I'm going to take care of the width of the waistband. So what I'm going to do is just fold it up, and that's double the width of it. So when we cut it out, all we have to do is fold it in half, and it's going to be the same width as what we see here. And I'm just going to place it on top of the fabric, make sure everything is smoothed out, and then I'm going to cut around. I'm also using a quarter of an inch seam allowance, and as I said before, I'm using the knobs that are either on the inside or outside of the rotary cutter as my seam allowance guide. And as I unfold it, so that is double the width and double the length. The length has been doubled because again it was on the fold, and so once I fold it up for the width side and place it near the waistband, you'll see that it's the exact measurement that we need once we sew it up. And see how easy it is? So it matches. Okay, so the next step is to create the cuffs for our pajama pants. I have the fabric that we're using. I have already put that on the fold. And so again, I measure the length from the seam to the edge of the cuff so that when we cut it out, it is the right amount of fabric that we need. And so you have to adjust your fabric a little bit, play around with it to make sure that you get the correct length. And once we get the correct length, then I am going to fold up the fabric, and that way I have the width of the fabric that I need for the cuff. So I have the correct length. Now I'm going to fold up, kind of eyeball it, so that gives me double the width that I need. And once I place it on here, I see that I have what I need, and now it is time to cut. And I'm having a little trouble there because my cutting boards, there's a gap right there, and even though I push it together, sometimes it doesn't cut because my blade goes in between that gap. But as you see, we have the length that we need, well, the width that we need, and we have the length that we need. And so once I fold it up and I compare it next to the cuff itself, it is the perfect match. And so I'm just going to do that again for the because I have to do it twice because we have two cuffs, right? One for each pants leg. So I'm just going to use what I already cut out and use that as the template to create the second one that we're going to need for the second pants leg. So make sure you have your pins ready for this part. So we're going to work with the sets of pants legs that we cut out. I want you to make sure that you keep both the front pants leg pieces together and the back pants leg pieces together. We're not going to separate them. We're going to keep them together. So right here, I'm working with what we use for the front piece. And so I'm just making sure that everything gets smoothed out, that there are no wrinkles, even down to the pants leg. I just want to make sure that everything still matches up because, you know, in sewing and cutting, I want to make sure that I didn't mix any pieces together, right? So as you see, everything matches. So this is still the set of front pants leg pieces, and please make sure that the crotch to the top of the waistband, that those pieces match up perfectly, because that's what we're about to pin. So get your pins. If you're a pin person and you like to use a lot of pins, or you like to use just two, just for the top and the bottom, that is completely fine. But I need you to pin just the crotch right now. This is what we're going to work with, just the crotch. And once we pin this, then we're going to take it to the sewing machine. We're going to set it to the side first because we're going to just, to save some time, I am going to take the back pants leg set, and I'm going to make sure that everything matches up from the crotch to the top of the waistband. I'm going to make sure that I have those together, everything is smooth out, and then we're going to pin that part as well. So instead of just doing one and going to the sewing machine, come back doing the other, then going back to the sewing machine, we're just going to do both right now. Pin just the crotches on both, and then we're going to head to the sewing machine. So it's pinned, and just to show you the front that is pinned as well, and then we're going to take it to the machine. Quickly, I want to show you the stitch function that I use, which is number 4, and I had it at a stitch length of 2.5 and a stitch width of 4, and I had my tension on 1.5. So here is how your stitches should look using the same stitch function. Okay, so hot off the machine, we have both pieces, and you see we have sewn from where the waistband will be to the crotch for the back piece, and the same from the top to the crotch for the front piece. Please make sure that you press between each one. Just take your iron, hold it in place 10 seconds until you have pressed the entire seam. So we see that our pants are coming together, they're looking nicely, and we're just going to match right sides together, and that's the side that the public will see. So once you have both pieces, try to match them up as much as possible, because this is important. We don't want anything out of place. And so you're going to just take your pins, and we're going to go outside of that front leg, and then we're going to go pin in a V shape from inside the first leg to the crotch down to the bottom of that leg, and then the total length of the outside leg. So please make sure that you get that done once you have lined everything up, because now we're going to take it to the machine and we're going to sew. Okay, so now I just want to show you how everything looks as it is pinned from the outer pants leg to the inner pants leg, from the bottom to the crotch, and down the bottom to the bottom of the other pants leg. And so now that everything has been pinned and everything matches up, we're going to take it to the machine. So here I just want to show you that the pants have been sewn together, and this is how they should look. So if we turn it inside out, we see that the only thing that we have left to do is just to place the waistband and the cuffs for the pants leg. So please make sure again that you press in between each seam. And so now we are about to get ready to place the waistband on our pants. Right sides touching, we're going to pin lengthwise and get ready to sew. So I just sped up this part because I didn't think you would like to just sit through this. What I'm doing is just folding my waistband in half, and then I'm quartering it off, and that means that there are 4 quarters that are marked with pins, and all I'm doing is folding the waistband in half, placing the pin there, and folding it in half in the opposite direction, placing the pin there, and that will help me to make sure that all the fabric is evenly distributed once I place it on top of the pants before I sew it. So here we are, we have all 4 pieces now have been pinned, and now I am just going to get ready to place the waistband itself on the pants. So what I'm going to do, I have found the back center seam, and I placed one of the quarters there and pinned it. Then I found the front center seam, and I found the quarter pin that I placed there and pinned it to that. And then on the outside, those 2 seams, and I've pinned in place. And what I'm going to do is just stretch the fabric in between and pin so that we can get ready to take it to the machine and sew. So just make sure that you use as many pins that you need, that you're comfortable with to sew. Okay, so here I want to show you that I've pinned everywhere, but I have double pins in 2 sections here, and that's because this is where I am going to insert the elastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here with the yellow pins and backstitch, and then go all the way around the waistband and stop here, because we're going to come back and sew that later. So as you see, our waistband is now attached, and I'm going to show you where I left that gap so that we can insert our elastic here, and we're going to come back and do that later. So I have my waistband, my elastic for my waistband here, and I have a safety pin. I'm just going to insert the safety pin into the elastic, and I try to find a place close to the top of the elastic, but not so close that, you know, those safety pin may tear it coming through, because sometimes that does happen. So I'm just going to fit it through that gap, and then we're just going to work it all the way around the waistband. So as you can see, we have placed the elastic all the way through, and I have completed it by stitching down. And so now we're going to take this gap that was there and we're just going to pin it in place, and then we're going to take it back to the machine to sew it. Keep in mind, we're not sewing on the elastic, but just at the bottom end where there's just a little room, and we're going to sew that in closed, and we're also attaching that to the pants because it wasn't attached before. Okay, so I'm showing you that I did add my personalized name tags inside the waistband, so you may do that now. And I'm just looking over, making sure that everything is okay, and then I'll look at the crotch at the front and the back. And again, the crotch for the front should be shorter than the crotch in the back, so you'll see that that it is shorter than what was in the back. And so I do have the name tag in the correct place. So now we're going to get ready to place our cuffs on the bottom of our pants leg, and you guys, we are nearing the finish line. So we just make sure that everything is smoothed out. We take our cuff pieces and make sure that we have located them both, because they can easily get lost. And we're going to fold them lengthwise and then fold it in half once again. But please make sure that all edges are even across the top. We don't want to overlap at all, because again, that can mess up your seam allowance and the overall look of your pants leg, because you don't want one cuff longer or shorter than the other. You want both matching. So again, we're going to fold it lengthwise. We're going to match up those edges at the top, and then we're going to make sure everything is smooth it out, and we're going to fold it once again. And this edge here, we're just going to stitch across. So again, make sure I'm a bit of a perfectionist here. We're just going to make sure pat it up, make sure everything is smooth out, fold it again, and sew across that edge. And use as many pins or as little pins as you think are necessary for you. Okay, so here we have the cuffs sewn up, and I'm just gonna flip it open, and then we're just going to make sure that it's even. And hey, we still got a good stretch, because we have to stretch it across the bottom of that pants leg. And I'm going to do the same for the second cuff, and just stretch it a little bit to make sure that it's able to be stretched across the pants leg. And so we're going to fit the bottom of the pants leg right sides together to the cuff, and we're going to match up that side seam or the inside seam. I put my seam on the inside seam, and we're going to pin it, and then we're going to stretch it across and pin all the way around. So here is how it may look for you once you have pinned the cuffs to the bottom of your pants leg. So I have, of course, pinned both, and then we're just going to sew all the way around for each pants leg. So congratulations to you all for finishing up your pajama pants. And so I'm showing you the final look of the cuffs. Here's the outside, and I just showed you the inside, and here's the inside of the other leg, and then I'm going to flip it out to the outside. I made these for my son. He really didn't want to take any videos or pictures in them yet. They were made for him for Christmas morning, and I have some more to sew for the rest of my family. But I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Have a great one.